When the first season of The Mandalorian came out, pretty much everyone wondered why Din Djarin couldn't remove his helmet. After all, every single Mandalorian, from Boba Fett to Bo Katan, had no problem with showing their face. This question was answered in Season 2, when Bo Katan explained that in actuality, Din Djarin is part of a Mandalorian cult that was trying to go back to the old ways. But this left many with even more questions than answers. Where did this cult come from? Exactly when did this cult appear, and why haven't we seen them before? Today, we'll be looking at the theory that we have in fact met the Children of the Watch in previous Star Wars projects, and that they are in actuality the followers of Darth Maul. And as I will demonstrate later on, the Mandalorian Season 3 trailer pretty much confirms this. To understand why Mando's cult is so different to the rest of the Mandalorians, we must first briefly explore the Mandalorian history and changing culture. Mandalorian history is incredibly complex and messy, but I've done my best to condense it down here. Some of this is covered in the Clone Wars TV show, and some of it's from Legends. However, as the majority of the Clone Wars TV show was made before the Disney takeover, it is actually pretty hard to distinguish what information they deem canon until they fill in the blanks. As Ahsoka said, there is always truth in Legends, and just because Disney hasn't put it in canon for now, it doesn't mean that we won't be seeing the same stories and ideas come back into the canon in the future. So very briefly, here's your rundown of Mandalorian history and culture. Many thousands of years before the Clone Wars, the Mandalorians were one singular race of lizard people known as the Tang. Now, this race was very good at fighting, but they also had a deeply conservative religion that is very similar to the way seen in The Mandalorian. I'll be making a more in-depth video on the ancient Mandalorian religion at some point, but here are its basic tenets. The first was to always wear armor and your helmet. Second, you must always defend your clan and family, no matter the cost. Third, you must contribute to your clan's well-being. Fourth, you must raise your family as Mandalorians. And fifth, you must always rally to your leader's cause. In addition to this, war was seen as a holy endeavor, and Mandalorians expected to live a brutal nomadic lifestyle. Eventually it was decreed by Mandalore the Ultimate that anyone could be a Mandalorian, as long as they followed these basic principles. As we will discuss later on, this religion is one shared by the Children of the Watch as well as Maul's Mandalorian followers. Over the millennia, the Mandalorians fought against the Republic and the Sith. However, with every defeat, the Mandalorian culture slowly but surely changed to become more pacifist. In both canon and Legends, the Mandalorians were brutally put down by the Jedi and the Republic, leading to the desolation of many Mandalorians and the near destruction of their planet. After this, most Mandalorians became pacifists, discarding their armor and pushing to join the Republic. However, some Mandalorians resolutely rejected this transformation, and a small number of them retained their ancient customs. With their religion and armor banned by the Republic and Mandalore's own government, only the toughest and most devout Mandalorians joined this group. These Mandalorians ended up being some of the vilest and most brutal in all of history. Eventually, they went on to commit genocide over an argument with some locals about an alcoholic drink distillery. As a result, many began to question whether the Mandalorians had lost their honor. This led to another split between two militant groups known as the True Mandalorians and the Death Watch. However, under the leadership of Jango Fett, the True Mandalorians were eventually defeated. The triumphant Death Watch then set its sights on reclaiming Mandalore itself, starting a conflict known as the Mandalorian Civil War between the pacifist New Mandalorians and the Death Watch. The New Mandalorians would eventually emerge victorious, and the Death Watch were exiled. In their defeat, a significant number of the Death Watch split off to form the Old Mandalorians, a group that focused solely on being nomadic bounty hunters. However, this did not stop the Death Watch's conquest. If anything, it just culled the moderates and made them even more extreme. During the Clone Wars, they teamed up with Darth Maul and some criminal syndicates to overthrow the pacifist government. Eventually they were successful, but their leader Pre Vizsla made the mistake of betraying Maul and imprisoning him. Of course, the Sith escaped and challenged their leader to a fight to the death. In Mandalorian tradition, whoever defeated the wielder of the Darksaber would become their new leader. Maul defeated and then killed Pre Vizsla, claiming the Darksaber and leadership over the Death Watch. However, Bo Katan went against Mandalorian tradition and refused to accept Maul as their new leader, and so the Death Watch's ranks were split yet again between those who followed Maul and those who followed Bo Katan. The battle between the forces of Bo Katan and Maul would wreak destruction yet again on Mandalore, plunging the entire planet into civil war. Maul would eventually be defeated with the help of the Republic, but many years of civil war left the Mandalorians weak, and they were easily absorbed by the newly formed Empire. At least some of Maul's followers would join the ranks of the Empire, leading to yet another Mandalorian civil war, which ultimately resulted in the Empire laying waste to the Mandalorian homeworld. However, as I will explain in just a moment, it seems that many of Maul's followers stayed true to their ancient ways, and went on to form the Children of the Watch. Now, the first and most obvious connection to Maul is the name of the cult. I mean, it's literally called Children of the Watch, which suggests it's associated with Death Watch. As we know, most of Death Watch join Maul. We know for a fact that this group cannot be Bo Katan's faction of the Death Watch, as she sees them as fanatics. Thus, if the Children of the Watch are indeed connected with the Death Watch, it will be Maul's super commandos that they spawn from. However, there are plenty of other reasons to believe that they are related to the Death Watch. First, we know that Clan Vizsla are in some way involved with the Children of the Watch. The original creator of the Darksaber was a member of this clan. Thus, they held Mandalorian tradition in high esteem, with many of their clan going on to fight for the Death Watch. One of the only named members of the Children of the Watch is Paz Vizsla, again suggesting a link between the two groups. This point was reaffirmed during a flashback, where Din Djarin is rescued by a Mandalorian wearing the symbol of Clan Vizsla. Another link to the Death Watch is their original base of operations. Most Mandalorians resided on Mandalore itself. However, due to their exile, Death Watch had a strong presence on Concordia. It is known that the Children of the Watch survived the Great Purge of Mandalore by hiding on Concordia, again suggesting that the two groups are linked. Another connection that I believe is significant is their culture. The Children of the Watch follow the Way, a belief system almost identical to the one practiced by the ancient Mandalorians we discussed earlier. They care deeply about their fellow clan members, and refuse to take off their armor, just like the Tang and the early Mandalorians. The Death Watch were already the most vehement supporters of the old ways, but the ones that followed Maul actually followed Mandalorian tradition more closely than Bo Katan's Night Owls. In fact, another name for Maul's Mandalorian super commandos was the Mandalorian Traditionalists. As briefly mentioned, in Legends, Mandalore the Ultimate decreed that anyone could be a Mandalorian. Thus, according to Mandalorian tradition, there is no reason as to why Maul could not become their leader. If we go strictly by the Mandalorian way of life, it is Bo Katan's snobbery and xenophobia that is at odds with the Mandalorian code. Outsiders can become Mandalorians, even their leaders, as long as they live by this code. Similar to Maul's Mandalorian followers, the Children of the Watch accept outsiders such as Din Djarin and even Grogu. It is certainly not hard to believe that the Death Watch, an already conservative Mandalorian group, would go on to form an even more traditionalist group in the form of the Children of the Watch. But how do we know that the Children of the Watch aren't just another Death Watch splinter group unrelated to Maul? Is there any evidence to suggest that they actually came specifically from the Mandalorians led by Maul, and not just the Death Watch more generally? Well, yes, actually there is. First of all, the look of the armor is unlike any other Mandalorian, except for Maul's super commandos. The spikes on her helmet clearly resemble the horns of a Zabrak male that were commonly implemented into the Mandalorian Traditionalist's armor. What's more, her armor is red, a very uncommon colour for a Mandalorian outside of Maul's followers. I have seen many argue that the armourer is in fact Rook Kast, and I believe this is highly likely. Rook Kast was extremely loyal to Maul and the ancient Mandalorian traditions, and fought fiercely against Bo Katan and her Night Owls. However, the most compelling piece of evidence was recently released in the Mandalorian Season 3 trailer. Now, of course, we are not going to see the full context of this conversation until the show itself, but in it, Bo Katan says the following.
Your cult fractured our people. Where were you then?
unless she is referring to a new bit of lore and yet another schism within the Mandalorian ranks. I believe it is highly likely she is referring to the war fought between her Night Owls and Maul's Super Commandos. Thus, this would conclusively prove that the Children of the Watch are indeed spawned from the Death Watch, and more specifically the traditionalists that followed Maul. Whether I am correct is yet to be seen, but if I am right, it would be interesting to see how connected the Children of the Watch really are to Maul. After all, we know that Maul ran one of the most powerful crime syndicates in the galaxy for much of the Empire's reign. Could the Children of the Watch still be in some way connected to Crimson Dawn? Perhaps there are sinister connections between the Armourer and a secret apprentice of Maul's that is yet to be unveiled. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you want to learn more about the rich history of the Mandalorians, then make sure to check out this video.